Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of the Membership IQ. This is where you go to get smart about membership. And we're going to get real smart today with Kate Solomon. Welcome to the show, Kate. Kate is on our advisory board for XYZ University. And I have known you, Kate, for a while, ever since you were like a newbie to the association profession, and now you're an executive and like doing all these cool things. So, Kate, do you want to just briefly introduce yourself?
Sure. Hello. Thank you for having me. Yeah, I think we first connected with like some association tweet chats back in the day. And then I happened to buy all of your books. So subtle plug, but it's worked really well for my career. But hello, everyone. I am Kate Solomon. I have actually been in association management my entire career, which is, I feel like, both odd, but quite fun, and several ones, and sort of by happenstance, became part of the membership marketing crew and sort of really dove into it since I began back in 2011. But I am now with the Association for Mechanical Engineers, so ASME, and I am in charge of their B2C segment for marketing, which includes lots of products, but also membership as that ties in. We represent, mechanical engineers globally, and really supporting their careers, as well as just supporting what engineering is doing to improve society. So I'm happy to be here. Always fun to be a guest on one of your favorite podcasts. So it'll be a good conversation, but you teed me up with high expectations, so no pressure.
All right. Well, no pressure whatsoever. We're just going with the flow today. All right. So I am curious, though, because we are broadcasting this, we're recording it. End of 2024, holidays just around the corner, and all people are always looking forward to the future. This will probably actually air early 2025. So I'm just curious, what types of questions or concerns are currently getting contemplated at ASME right now? What are you talking about? What's top of mind?
We're talking about what I like to call the trifecta right now. I actually came from my internal trifecta. I just came from a wonderful leadership summit that our strategy office held in New Jersey a couple of weeks ago. And it was all about unlocking growth. So this is a great question. This is very top of mind. But we're doing kind of what I've called our current trifecta is really focused on the customer experience, product portfolio management, and digital transformation, and how all of those sort of work together to, both turn into day-to-day operations, but also how we're using new digital tools or new digital systems to enhance the customer experience. And I think the best thing that's been happening at ASME for the last couple of years is this intense focus on the customer, on internal to external shift, and really looking at customer pain points. And are we identifying them? Are we, speaking their language? Are we talking to them? Are we getting data-driven insights? And how do we keep that customer obsession at the forefront of everything we're doing? Which it seems kind of obvious, but it's actually harder than you think, because it involves, maybe sunsetting some legacy programs, or questioning some assumptions of, is the data actually supporting this shift in messaging, or are we just guessing? So that's our big trifectas, is how do we sort of intertwine all of those for a better member experience, for a better volunteer experience, for a better customer experience across the board.
Yeah, I love that phrase, customer obsession. And I talk about this in the book, Member Shift, that, we got to be putting members first, member-centric, member, and all of that. But yes, and then you throw in technology and all the changes happening. And in some aspects, it makes it so much easier to serve people. But in other aspects, it makes it so much more challenging, because we're on a little bit of a learning curve and it's just a little crazy, right?
Exactly. And I'm sure everybody was like, if this is in January, I'm thinking of all, the listicles and the articles, like every association, AI, obviously top of mind for both how it's impacting our members and their careers in their industry and their field, but alternatively, how's it impacting staff, right? Do we have different policies? What tools can we use? So that's sort of the larger ghost in the room that I think is affecting everybody across the board. But the other three are the ones that is, we have some answers to, or we have a strategy map for right now.
Right. Well, it's so great that you took time to strategize and talk about some of these things. And I'm curious, what other tips do you have for leading an organization in a time of change? So you're talking about it, you set aside time for it, but also, Kate, since you came into association work as a young professional and you were right away shaking things up, I know this. And so, what's kind of your wisdom? What works for leading an organization through a time of change?
And it is funny you say that, because I think every organization I've worked at has either done some sort of giant internal reorg while I've been there, or like a CEO shift.
It's the Kate effect.
This is why I just ask a lot of questions. But I like to challenge whys, which people love it or hate it, but it's very much, I do push back if it's, well, we've always done it that way. That's never an acceptable answer to me. So I like the, what they always say, the annoying little kid that just keeps asking why. It also works as a professional to dig down to the root of that answer. But I would say, it's very oddly simple. It's transparency and communication. And it's, can you communicate the why? So if you're going through a big change, just don't make it a secret. I think explaining the rationale, everyone's a professional, but where you get into the fear-based leadership or the fear of change is when people start closing ranks. Like they're scared of job security, or they're scared of the change, or they're not sure what's happening, or you're so focused on short-term gains that you're not worried about long-term impact or foundational stability. So the organizations I've worked in that have been the most successful have taken the time to explain the why, where it's not a secret. It's not being done in a closed room. It's not the because I said so top-down leadership, but it's taking the time to get that buy-in. And that doesn't mean that there's no pushback. Sometimes pushback's good. You want a little dissension, right? Because maybe it's you didn't explain something properly, or maybe you have to adjust your talking points, or maybe someone just has a different perspective that you didn't even think about. And so that gets back to as you're establishing change, do you have enough different voices in the room? And especially this works the same from an association, like a membership level, right? Like, does your committee have a student representative? Do you have an ECE or emerging professional there? Because the more voices you have, it's less of the echo chamber, less of the yes man, and you're actually having a full discussion. And then the other thing, and I've been really happy, ASME does this a lot, is the idea of, again, you're not changing based on fear. It's based on growth. So you can have a fail forward mindset where it's okay to take big swings. It's okay to take those risks as long as you're learning from something. My current boss is fantastic about that, where it's, you just have to tell me what you learned. Did it work? Did it not work? Sometimes it doesn't work, and that's okay. But are you moving forward, or are you just staying in, fake inertia where you're not actually doing anything?
Right. Doing lots of busy work, but not actually helping people or moving things forward.
Exactly.
I love everything you just said, like love, right? And that fear of change and that explaining why. I hear so many organizations say, we need to change. This isn't working. But they never really take that. They stay in that like complaining, drama role, yelling, we need to change. But then they don't actually take the steps. Number one, yes, to ask, well, wait a minute, why? And why is this urgent and important? And then Okay, but what exactly does change mean, and how are we going to do it? And those are critical questions to ask, because sometimes organizations say they want change, but they don't really want to change. They don't really want to take risk, but you have to. You got to get comfortable with that.
And I do think that is definitely a post-COVID shift of COVID kind of showcase that associations can be more agile than they think they can.
Right.
I know before COVID, it was very much a change, or pace of change in associations tends to be very slow. And I found that across the board, like several webinars I've been on, we're like, oh, it's not just my group. Like everyone's a little bit hesitant. Yep. And I think several organizations realized that they could pivot, or they could adapt, or they could make decisions faster, but maybe their operations or their bylaws or their procedures were kind of providing that red tape and got in the way. And so how are we changing those? How are we making it easier for us to be adaptable and to evolve with our membership? And I think the other part of that is it also doesn't all have to happen today. So when we say pace of change, it doesn't mean that you're magically getting a new CRM system and updating the bylaws and getting 17 new products and events conferences in 6 months. That's also just not realistic. But having that long-term priorities, having it mapped out, having it in phases, there's ways to keep moving forward, even if it's done deliberately, or it's done with that, quality control of some things are still going to take an RFP process. Like if you're spending a lot of money, it is going to be a little slower. But do you have a vision? Do you know where you want to go? And are you looking far enough down the road to be more proactive versus reactive? And I think that's the biggest shift I'm seeing in healthy associations or conversations I'm having with other like middle management people in associations are like, we want to anticipate those changes now. And so we can set the groundwork and then be ready to serve our members when it's hitting.
Absolutely. Which is a great segue into my next question, which, as you know, I love to talk about generations. And a really monumental thing happened this year, 2024. The number of baby boomers in the workforce is now smaller than the number of Gen Zs. And baby boomers were the workforce majority for like over 30 years. So this is an insane transition in human capital. And I'm curious, what are the conversations in your organization? What are some of the generational trends or topics that you are hearing right now?
The boom out finally happened. We've been warning about it for decades.
Yeah, a long time, long time.
A lot of the conversation I'm seeing across business units is that idea of how are we supporting really that workforce pipeline? And the big focus for us has been the early career engineers, because we have a very robust, student program and student membership. They're tied to their local clubs. And then we see that drop off. And again, this is not unique to my association. My first association, we were trying to build that pipeline. And a lot of the conversations, especially around early career professionals, are that idea of how do we keep engagement and keep brand awareness and keep domain authority, because they might not be ready to join yet, and that's okay. But understanding that time poverty is a thing, that you might have less money, you have less time, you have more work associations, and people who want to be members, that's an emotional commitment. That's a time commitment. You don't want to join something if you can't go all in. And so can we stay top of mind so when they're ready to join, whenever that is in their career field, we're the top of their list, and sort of adapting to make sure we still have those value adds.
Yeah.
But the other thing that I've been finding really, really interesting from a lot of the surveys we've been taking or conversations is with Gen Z especially, it's the shift from what's in it for me to really wanting that altruistic, I'm part of the community, I'm giving back, purpose-driven society we're seeing. And so it's a little less of the laundry list of benefits is no longer appealing. The personal narrative of I'm changing the world, come join me is very much what they're looking for. And I just think that's so cool because it's going back to, I want to volunteer. I want to make a difference in my community. I want to form connections, and going back to, I know we've had conversations before of like the loneliness epidemic is real. The time everything is real. So how do you transform the messaging around membership to be community oriented and that community mindset?
Exactly. Yes. And I think Gen Zs are going to hold organizations accountable.
Very much.
I think that, yes, I think you're absolutely right. We're hearing more and more. We're hearing more and more that for Gen Zs, they think of membership as an extension of like their personal brand. Like if I'm joining this is a big statement about myself. So I need to feel really, really confident that I've made the right choice. And then when I'm in, as you put it, I'm all in. Like this is super important to me. So,
and I think that brand identity is the key, right? It's the extension.
Yes.
They share my values. It says something about me. It says, X, Y, and Z about myself as a engineer, as a professional, or as a young student. And I know part of the conversation we just had in the summit was the idea of like shifting from a mission-driven organization to a purpose-driven organization.
Oh, cool.
Idea of it's not just about our mission is to support your career. Our purpose is to showcase how engineering better impacts humanity and kind of almost taking that larger macro view. And I think that, again, resonates especially with Gen Z, millennials as well, but that idea of it's bigger than me and it's above myself. And I am part of a larger group trying to do good. And I am proud to identify as such.
Yeah. It is amazing when you think about kind of taking away the benefits or redefining the value of an association in light of some of these changes. And I think this coming year, it'll just be a fascinating year. We'll see how this all plays out. We're going to have a new president. We're, seeing AI just go through the roof. It'll be really, really an interesting time of change. So I love that your association is thinking about very, very ahead of the curve, right? You're going to things to unlock growth. I love that. And thinking about purpose and being purpose-driven. And you've mentioned a few times this idea of community. What do you see on the horizon or what's really working right now in terms of community building?
And it's so funny because I'm almost taking this as like an internal external view as well, because internally from staff in community building, something we've been focused on in the last couple of years is breaking down the silos and really talking to each other. Are you talking to other departments? Do you see how you interact together? Are we working on cross-functional enterprise-wide projects? And the internal community building that's happened in just the last couple of years has been astounding with that viewpoint, because it's been very much, again, it's, people have the same frustrations I do or have ideas. Or if I talk to someone, I'm really energized because I never thought of it that way and I'm getting new eyes on it. So from a internal staff-wide, the more cross-functional teams and projects and larger initiatives has just been creating these beautiful cohorts of very drastic individuals across the board. Flipping that over to members, it's a very similar thing where some associations, I feel like, and ones I've worked at as well, sometimes it's hard to build that intangible definition of what a community is, especially if you are an association that might be a larger Big Ten association. So it's not defined by a specific subset interest or a demographic interest. Or, we're not just for aerospace engineers, we are for all mechanical engineers. That's a big group. And what that community looks like, because you have to balance both the very niche interests of I need technical training in my specific area, but also that larger, why do you want to be in a big group? So we've been seeing the importance of we call them sections, same thing as a local chapter, and expanding those, and especially in the international markets, to be directly correlated with higher satisfaction membership ratings. If your local chapter is involved, if those communities are involved, if you are going to regional events where it's almost like all politics is local, right? Same with associations sometimes, where if you are getting that network from either a subspecialty group, like maybe you're volunteering or you're in a technical interest division or a specific conference, but I'm just seeing more and more emphasis on, I actually want to connect with those in my city, or I want to go to my monthly meeting, or my group is participating in Community Impact Month and we're all volunteering in April, and it was so much fun. So it's oddly gone from larger community where it's like, oh, am I part of an online community or group or things like that? And it's almost going back to those smaller in-person local groups that are still associated with our larger organization.
Yeah. So do you think that, some organizations have struggled to keep their local chapters going? And in your world, it's sections, but whether it's sections, chapters, whatever you want to call them, groups. Some are struggling to keep their local groups going. And so let's expand upon that just for a moment. What do you see if you're seeing a resurgence at the local level? What is the secret to success there? Is it making sure you have the right leaders and leadership training? What is it that you think is going to help?
Yeah, and it's made me laugh because it was like, I feel like it's almost been a complete pendulum swing to making sure you have all the online communities to everyone's like, I really want in person. Yeah. I really want to see humans and talk to someone who's not an avatar, right?
Yes.
So we were saying the boom out is real, the zoom out is also real, where I think people just like want to have an actual face-to-face conversation. And I know part of what our sections team has been really, really focused on, and they are, I feel like, unsung heroes of associations, because it's like they're the front-facing people that when they're doing their job well, you don't notice as much, right? Because it's just going smoothly. They have worked so hard on really revitalizing and restarting sections that may have lapsed, like whether it was during the pandemic or things like that. And that came from, yes, the right leadership. Do you have people in that area that are going to start it, that are going to go to the meetings and lead it? You have to have that volunteer management part of it. But what they've done, I think, really well is provide that support system of, here's onboarding for our volunteers. Here is training session. We have monthly calls if you need to share problems. We have toolkits and resources so you can do a recruitment campaign, or are you having your meetings, or are you meeting up together? So I feel like they've done the legwork of making sure the volunteers have felt supported. But also I think a big part of it is there enough interest in your area, right? So some areas might have, does California have 17 chapters and they're all really small radius, where, hey, maybe Idaho has one. And why is nobody coming to my meetings? Well, they might live 3 hours away. That's really hard. So are you investing that time? Do you have that community? Do you have that base of members? So if we just started a new chapter in India, for example, because there were a lot of people there, they did want to get involved. So it's a balancing act, I feel like, in making sure that you're providing enough resources so members across the globe, if you're, international or domestic, or if you're country-based or regional-based, you want to be able to have enough people where if a new member joins and they get assigned to your chapter or assigned to your section, they go to that first meeting. Is it 5 people? Is it nobody? Do they ever get communication? Or is it a lovely, robust experience that is really providing that value add?
Right, right. And you're absolutely right that, those first impressions really matter, and the effort really matters, and the support really matters. Okay. Oh my gosh. I feel like we could talk for hours.
No, I feel like I keep like going back and forth. I'm like, I have so much to say.
I know.
If that makes sense.
I know. No, it does. It does. And you do have so much to say. I'm so glad we're doing this. Before we adjourn our podcast, I want to just ask, what is a great success story or maybe a strategy, some sort of tip that you would like to share with our audience? Again, these are people who are tuning in, who are association professionals, are trying to grow their membership. And what's Kate Solomon's big advice right now?
I think you said this might be like a New Year's one. So new year, new me. We all have resolutions.
Yes.
I'm going to go back to customer obsession because that's been like the bell I've been ringing for a few years.
Love it.
It's customer pain point mapping and taking the time to do that. And this can look like a lot of different things. This might be an empathy mapping workshop, or it might be a jobs to be done brainstorming, where you're looking at the mindset of a specific persona or a member, or just journey mapping, even like the member onboarding process. Take a look at it. Like, where are the pain points? What's working? What's not working? But something I would have everyone make their New Year's resolution is to do some sort of customer pain point exercise to start your year off with empathy, but also start your year off challenging assumptions. We assume a lot of things, myself included. That's one of the things I'm working on of this didn't work because of X. Do we know that? Do we have proof points? Have we seen it? Or members are going to want this benefit because I said so, or, going back to it, where are we developing member events or messaging or the onboarding communications or a new benefit because it's meeting a need, because it's meeting their job? And so my strategy, and again, this is kind of the bread and butter of ASME for about a year and a half, 2 years now, that I've just fully bought into, is that idea of customer first and actually identifying their pain points. Because once you dig into one of these exercises, and whether or not it's a workshop with your team, or again, I highly suggest cross-functional ones because you'll get a lot of different perspectives. But are you able to even identify some of the pain points? Because it is hard. Sometimes you don't know. And being able to look at that message framework or start keeping that top of mind makes the rest of your strategy and the rest of your efforts that much more focused. And that's really something that has helped me a lot, especially in taking over kind of a B2C segment mindset as we've transitioned our marketing department.
Right. Yes, I do think that's such an important thing. And I'm just thinking in my head that we will have people listening. They're like, I don't have time for that. But you got to make time, right? And if you're customers obsessed and you're putting members first, it's a natural progression to start to dive deep into what is this experience really like? What is that value we're really delivering? What is that call to action? What is that big purpose? And you start really diving in, and that's where the good stuff is, right?
And I would argue it saves time because you have less to redo. Because
so true.
If you start at the very beginning, right? If you're starting with this, and it's taking the time now to avoid fixing issues later. And so it is a little bit of quality control almost. And because we're in such, like you said, it's a very shift and transformative time right now, both with macro and micro factors across the board, right? In industries, in technology, and politics, and the economy, that it's actually a perfect time to do it because your membership and your membership body and experience has likely changed even within the last 5 years. Take 2020 as a perfect example, right? Anything you're looking at before 2020 is probably out of date and not helping you. And so go ahead and take that time and do a little bit of that internal audit. What is our communication audit? What is our member benefits audit? Do we actually know the makeup of our membership? It might have shifted. You're talking about like, hey, you might have had a whole lot of people retire, and half of your benefits were for people 55 and up.
Yep.
Are you progressing with the times? And it's uncomfortable. It's an uncomfortable exercise, especially again, as you might dig into some knowledge gaps or fighting some assumptions you had, or maybe having to give up some personal legacy projects. You're like, oh, but I really liked that one conference or benefit. But going back to how you were talking about with like, how do you lead in a time of change? If you're not fear averse or change averse, and if you're like, yes, this is going to be hard, but this is going to set us up for the next 100 years of our association.
Right.
You have to start somewhere. And that's actually really exciting and really fun. And that's when you get your staff energized, because now you can build something.
Mm-hmm. I agree. Oh my gosh. Kate, this has been amazing. And we could talk and talk and talk and talk. But I just want to say a heartfelt thank you for being on the Membership IQ podcast. And listeners, I hope you gleaned a lot. We heard zoom out, purpose, customer obsession, so many great little tidbits and takeaways. Thank you, Kate, for being here on the show. It has been a joy talking with you, and I think you passed along some great wisdom for associations to implement in this coming year.
Well, thanks for having me, and just keep talking to each other. This is how we all get better. So podcasts like this, or I'm just waiting for the next book, Sarah. I'm waiting. I'm looking at my bookshelf now.
No pressure.
No pressure. But thank you for kind of helping us build our community and being a place for us to learn and upskill and have that continual conversation, because as you mentioned in your book, membership, right? It never changes. And there's always something or it never stays the same. There's always something changing, something evolving. So we always have something to learn too.
That's right. That's right. All right. Fantastic. Thanks, Kate. Thanks for being on the show.
Thank you so much.
Tune in next time, folks.